Welcome to episode 30 of the British Boxing Blog podcast. We've got myself, Andrew.
Hello, and Stephen here, dialing in from Gateshead.
Hopefully our connection, we're using a new bit of technology. Hopefully the connection's not too bad. It's better than me holding my phone to the laptop anyway.
Obviously, I know we keep saying we'd like to do face-to-face podcasts, but sometimes it's not always possible through the week and stuff, so we thought we'll give this new bit of kit a whirl. So let's see how it gets on.
Up and running, first midweek one of 2020.
It's took about 4 years to reach 30 podcasts.
I know, we'll get there. We've done well so far this year, though. We've hit a few out in the last couple of weeks, so hopefully we'll strike them while the iron's hot.
This is our fourth of the year, and just thank you to everyone that's listened so far. And if you enjoy it and you enjoy the special guests, or even just enjoy me and him having a bit of a natter, then just feel free to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes and SoundCloud, all under the British Boxing Blog name. Feel free to leave a review, subscribe, follow, share, tell your pals, whatever you want. Just it helps us grow, helps the numbers go, and hopefully we can bring you better guests and stuff in the future.
Nicely said. With that in mind, actually talk about some boxing. Just before we started, I said I haven't watched any this weekend, so this bit's all on you.
Yeah, boxing podcast with two people that don't watch boxing. No, man.
Catch on, you never know.
I know. I sat through the main card of the MTK Belfast bill on Saturday. I didn't see the prelims, the earlier fights, because I was just getting in for the match and stuff. But I tuned into the four main fights that were shown. It was a really good bill. Like, God, I feel like I repeat myself, but MTK seem to be getting better. Basically, I think what their aim is to deliver arena quality shows in terms of commentary, production, and 50-50 fights, but in small hall venues and on an internet stream as well. It was from the Olympia Hall, Belfast. It opened with what I thought might have been the main event, which was one of our round for pound fights, which was David Oliver Joyce and Lee Haskins, which on paper I thought, that's a cracking contest. That Joyce was looking to bounce back from his defeat in the Golden Contract, and Haskins, nothing much needs to be said about him. He's had an amazing career, but they met, and Haskins, you could see from round one, was struggling with a bad knee. He had heavy strapping and a bit of a knee support on, and it wasn't the Haskins of old where the movement wasn't necessarily there. He was planting his feet and really looking to dig in quite early on Joyce in the body, and Haskins actually won the first round. But having said that, you can also see that he wasn't right in the movement, and I think myself and a few others on Twitter picked up on that early on and thought this knee strap is a giveaway, but he's clearly fighting with a bit of an issue here. And he probably did enough to take two as well. Haskins, Joyce, to his credit, from three till I think it was stopped in the fifth, sort of bit down and really, fire with fire and fired back at Haskins. And Joyce got the win. Haskins' knee buckled, I think, from him in the either the fourth or the fifth, and he just sort of gave way on his knee. And you could tell from that point he was a sitting duck, and give Joyce a target, give Joyce something to hit, and Joyce, to his credit, he can only beat what's in front of you. Came away with a win and bounced back well at a new weight division, and it's a good name on his record. Haskins, on the other hand, retired immediately after the fight, and I'm sure you'd agree that he might not be the most, he's not necessarily a household name as such. He's never maybe got the big Sky fights or the big, the massive fights. But if you look down his resume, then it's a resume that I think 95% of British boxers would kill for. Do you know what I mean? You're talking former world champion. He's won the lot. You know what I mean? And he's done the lot, and a few losses on his record, but so what? And he's had a career to be proud of. That's for sure. Yeah,
100%. And I think with him obviously retiring in like the very immediate aftermath of that fight, it's almost nice that, and it sounds bizarre, nice suffering an injury, but if it's a knee injury that sort of persuaded him to call time on his career, then it's almost like that decision's been taken out of his hands. We see so many boxers that go on just too long, or they think they can maybe come back and relive their sort of former past glories. And hopefully with Lee Haskins, that's not the case. He just obviously his body's telling him that enough's enough, and it's a good a
I think
time as any to walk away, as you say, from being on that world title stage, world champion, to then losing on what is still essentially a small hall show against a prospect. It must be a pretty bitter pill to swallow, but in the same vein, it's very clear cut that now is the time to retire and go and enjoy your life after boxing.
Apparently, he's got a son as well who's a really good prospect. I forget the name of his son now, but apparently he's going to put his time now into training him. So I think that's a name to look out for as well. I will find the name. Sorry, it's
It is a name,
escaped us at this point. But as you say, I think it's that old cliche that time waits for no man, and it looked on Saturday that now it's the time for Haskins to bow out, and you can't argue with that decision. But yeah, as I say, credit to David Oliver Joyce as well, that bouncing back from that disappointment, getting beat off Lee Wood, and then back in Belfast, and to his credit, back in with a really good name and a good opponent in Haskins.
This is the thing. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you were talking about why the MTK shows are seen as so successful, because they are viewed as that smaller hall, almost like a middle hall, if that makes sense, like that bridge between the small hall and the big Matchroom and Frank Warren cards in this country. But they're doing it well, as you say. It's the production values and things are there, which even the self-proclaimed hardcore boxing fans, I think they do pay attention to that sort of thing. And if you're watching in a little leisure centre or whatever, and you might subconsciously not be impressed by it, but the MTK shows do have that air of quality about them. But in addition to that, they're putting on good fights. Like, obviously, we've seen one in Newcastle recently. There's another one coming up soon, which we'll probably talk about near the time. But it's without the competitive fights, the cards aren't worth watching necessarily, whether they're on YouTube or TV or whatever.
No, you're totally right. You are right, and I think we spoke to Lee Eaton about this in the past, and I think their ethos now is and Gary Forrest as well up here, and their ethos is, I think, to try and get at least one 50-50 fight on the cards, which I know people go, oh, just one, but it's not easy when you're not on. I know it's on IFL and it's on ESPN Plus in America streaming services, but it's not, to deliver a 50-50 fight costs money, and without TV exposure it can be difficult. But on Saturday they had 4 basically, the one we've just talked about, and there was 3 other cracking contests on there as well, which was a great way to start the year for MTK. I'll move on to the next one. I said 50-50. It didn't really work out like that in the ring, but I know beforehand you were intrigued by it as well, and that was the Lewis Crocker versus John Thane fight. Lewis Crocker is a name that's been mentioned for the last couple of years to be a real prospect over there in Northern Ireland, and I think a lot of people have high hopes for him as well. And John, needs no introduction. He's one of the great guys of British boxing, such a nice fella, and someone we used to watch back in our early days of BBB and going up to Scotland and stuff. And he's had a long layoff. John, I think it was about 2 years, and he sort of took social media, like badgering the main promoters in the country, saying, "Come on, like, get me a fight." He put up a good account against Bradley Skeet and stuff a few years back for the British title. He was meant to be fighting in the Philippines. That fell through, and he got his wish, and he was the away fighter against Crocker, and it didn't go according to plan on the night. That was no disgrace from John. It was just a case of Crocker was the aggressor, the harder puncher. John is a lovely boxer, as you know, but doesn't really have much bang in the punches, and Crocker took a deserved victory on the cards, and he won every round in my book. Like, he was just a bit more, as I say, a bit more aggressive, a bit more spiteful. He's never been stopped, John, so he survived it. And there was times where towards the end it looked like he could have been hurt, but I think it just looked like a man that was delighted to be back in the ring. Do you know what I mean? He loves the sport. He was a good amateur, and I think, if, like I said on Twitter the other day, if that's the route for him now, to just be an away fighter who doesn't get stopped, can box, can move, then fair play. Do you know what I mean? If not that he's lost the ambition, but if he's not a big ticket seller or whatever, and he's not getting on the big Scottish shows or the undercards or something, then I guess you have to find a way to keep going. And he loves the game, so why should he give it up? And Crocker, to his credit, again, like I said about Joyce, it's another really good name on the record. Former British title challenger. Crocker's pretty big puncher, good body puncher. didn't get the stoppage, but did get a deserved points win on the night over 8 rounds.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Lewis Crockett goes from here. He was one who sort of burst onto the scene with a string of stoppages early on in his career, which seemed to have dried up recently. But from what you've described there, obviously, if he's winning every round, he's putting in that polished performance against a superior opponent, then you can't really knock him for that. And like as I said, he's had, 10, 11 fights now. It'll be interesting to see how active he stays and whether he kicks on to that next level.
Absolutely.
Who else was on? Who else caught your interest?
Yeah. The fight that was getting billed and as fight of the night, which a lot of our Northern Irish people in the know on Twitter were recommending, was the Irish title lightweight fight between Gary Cully and Joe Fitzpatrick. Excuse me. There's 2 unbeaten lads putting it on the line on a small horse show, as I say, for the Irish title, which I thought was really refreshing. You know, they didn't have to do that. You know, but I was just like, things got a bit heated in the weigh-in, I think, the day before, and it had a real. You could tell even watching it at home that the atmosphere was bouncing in there, and you know, it was billed as a 50-50, but it didn't play out like that at all. Cully came absolutely flying out of the blocks and caught Fitzpatrick in the first round, I think, with a lovely right hand from which he never recovered. He got up, but you could tell he just wasn't there, and Cully finished the job within an hour and a half. Absolutely, it was a scintillating display. It was fantastic.
Within an hour and a half, did you say?
A minute and a half, a minute and a half, and he was just on fire from the get-go. Totally caught Fitzpatrick cold and really ruthlessly seized upon his chance and won the Irish title.
Part of the game plan? Did he come out like from the off swinging, or was it maybe?
I don't know. The commentators I hadn't seen much of either guy, to be honest with you. But the commentators were saying, you know, Fitzpatrick had the reputation as being the puncher, but Cully just came out and caught him with a lovely shot and then finished the job. And he was, you know, it's caught a lot of people's attention. I know Carl Frampton tweeted about him saying, you know, he's got world champion potential, which I thought, wow, that's huge, you know. And as I said on Twitter the other day, that he's definitely, you know, when you see a boxer that you've never seen before and you think, oh, I'll keep an eye on him in future. It's like when you're watching the horse racing and you see a horse and you think, oh, hey, hello. You know what I mean? I'll track that. Or, you know, you see a football and you think he might be good in a few years. And there's the same with Cully. I thought, oh, I'll keep an eye on him going forward because he's quite tall and he's quite, I'm not really sure how he makes lightweight, but he does. And it was a great win. And, you know, now he's got a title to his name. He's probably got the backing of MTK and stuff. And exciting feature, do you know what I mean? He's now the Irish champ, opens more doors to him. And like we touched on the other week, there's ways to get attention, and a pretty good way of doing it is a knockout in a minute and a half in a 50-50 fight against your local rival. Do you know what I mean? So again,
definitely, you just summed it up there. To be honest, like how many prospects have we seen over the years? Obviously doing BBB and before that as well, like going the distance. And we talk about what you need to do as a boxer, and there's many different ways to get attention, to build your profile, to boost your drawing power, whatever it is. But if you're not doing the business in the ring, then ultimately you are going to come short at some point. You're going to struggle to get everything else alongside it and matching up to it. So you go in and you knock someone out, as you say, local rival, obviously domestic, like area equivalent over here, title. You can't really ask a lot more than that. And as you say, just casual viewers like you watching it, not really sort of aware of him, he sticks in your mind a bit, and you think, oh, I will look out for him. Like, and that probably goes for, obviously, say he's got the backing of MTK, but that'll go for other promoters and people in the business as well, just sort of open their eyes to him. And like you're talking about there, the sort of potential ceiling just goes up with every performance like that, just raises a little bit.
Absolutely, you're totally right there. And like I said, Carl Frampton was tweeting about him and stuff, you know, an absolute Belfast hero, Belfast legend.
No higher praise than in my eyes, then.
No, there's not. And he also, staying on that, he also tweeted about the guy that won the main event, which, moving on swiftly, seamlessly there, was Sean McComb. And he was fighting the Argentinian, Godoy, I believe it was. Now I forgot his first name. Hopefully you've got box right up and you can tell us about it. But anyway, McComb was fighting. He was the main event, and you know it was his toughest test to date. But he just won it so comfortably, and they pulled Godoy out. I think at the end of the 6th, going into 7, someone will correct me if it's 7 going into 8, but his corner pulled him out, and wasn't that he was taking a massive beating as such. Don't get me wrong, McComb did catch him a few times. There was times where he looked a bit glazed in the eye, but in the eyes and stuff, but in that sort of tough South American way, didn't go down or anything. It was just very one-sided. It was a bit of a beat down, and like in a dominant way. Do you know what I mean? Rather than like, it wasn't actually too competitive. And I think that's all credit to McComb, because his boxing was just far superior. And it was billed as his toughest test yet, but he just he picked him apart. He had Danny Vaughan in the corner, was spot on all night with the instructions and stuff. He knew, he encouraged him throughout the rounds, and you could just see that his confidence grew as the fight went on, and he deservedly got that win as well. And then he said at the end of the fight, when they did the interview, they asked him about the domestic division, and he said, "Oh, actually, I'm going to move down, and I think he's going down to 135." And I was like, "How the hell does he squeeze into that?" Or unless he's going to, I can't remember. But I'll have to double check. Good facts. But I saw, again, seems a really good kid, judging off the interview and that. And like I say, he definitely impressed people as well. Like, he's another one. Him and Cully and Crocker came out of the night, as did Joyce. But you know what I mean? There's 3 names that people may not have heard a lot of before this, apart from your Belfast hardcores. But they were well worth keeping an eye on. He boxed really well and had a lovely style. And I think, as I said, Frampton even said he's got, him and Cully both have world title potential. So again, another one for you to put in your little notebook.
It's getting bigger and bigger, this notebook. But then like the 3 of them you've just sort of referred to, and I'm not saying that they'll end up boxing each other, but they're all in and around the same weight. And MTK are developing their stable so that they've got really sort of strength in depth, to sort of coin a football phrase, in various regions. So we've seen it before. You mentioned obviously Thane there fighting in Belfast, and Lewis Benson's fought as the away fighter, even though he's technically represented by MTK on a couple of occasions. And you've got London, Liverpool, Scotland, obviously the Belfast one there, and the mix and match, and then that's where they can maybe generate these 50-50 fights fairly easily and readily, because I think they get the lads to a point, and they're like, well, you're not padding your record. You need to get in with someone of a similar record, because they're all under that MTK umbrella. It's almost like a UFC light, in the sense of they can put their own boxers in with each other and say, well, you win, lose, or draw. There's another opportunity for you further down the line, or 3 months, 6 months, whatever. We'll put you back in with someone and let you crack on. Like, obviously Joyce is a fantastic, great example of that in the MTK tournament. He's obviously come up short there. No shame in that. Obviously the lad he boxed, very talented fighter. But like you said, he's straight back in against another decent name, and he's almost put that blip behind him immediately within his next fight. There's no sort of tune-ups, there's no soft touches. He's straight back in there, and fine well that they're all going to get matched fairly evenly or competitively in the future. They're not getting an easy ride.
No, you're totally right. You made a good point there about the stable's ever grown, and the one thing that when we spoke to lads up here and stuff about it is that they get them fights. Like, for example, we saw Andrew Selby on the Newcastle bill, last December, I think it was, just going through a little tune-up fight, and well, he actually got dropped twice in the fight. Like, but just things like that, and bringing them up here with no pressure on the tickets and stuff, and looking after the lads. Do you know what I mean? And getting them out, and you see Tommy Ward fighting in Dubai and stuff like that, and there is that flexibility there that if someone needs a fight, or if someone's manoeuvring the way to like a world position and stuff, or they need a tune-up, anything like that, then they, as you say, they've got strongholds now in a lot of different areas, and it's not just waiting for the next big arena show to come around. They can get people out. I know there's different people being added to the Newcastle show that you've touched on in a few weeks' time and stuff, and who aren't from the region, and probably won't get judged on ticket sales. So I'm sure that's a huge benefit to them. Do you know what I mean? The boxers as well.
Yeah. One question I've got for you with them regards to them streaming the shows. Obviously, it exposes the boxers to a wider, as I say, more casual audience. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just mean like fans who might not necessarily be massively interested in Belfast boxing, for example, are now maybe familiar with a few more prospects, a few more names. Yeah. But I've heard many times of small hall promoters that there's no benefit to them to putting their shows on like televised or on a free stream or whatever, because they're still relying on ticket sales and things like that. So do you think there's room for both? Is there any approach you think's more successful or necessarily better?
No, I know what you're saying. I do get what you're saying, and I think MTK obviously have some financial backing. They're not just your sort of local promoter. Do you know what I mean? They've got huge ties with ESPN. As I say, these are broadcast live in ESPN Plus in the States, which I'd be interested to see the figures, like how many people are tuning into to boxing from Belfast Olympia with, you know, in the States. But I don't know. There might be more than I think. I don't know. And obviously they've got the IFL platform as well. And you know they've got Barry Jones and stuff commentating. It when you're watching it at home, I guess it's just basically like watching what Box Nation was. Do you know what I mean? The stream was perfect on Saturday, no issues with that on the smart TV, on the YouTube app. There was absolutely no issues there. And I get what you're saying. Like you see it a bit with Dennis Hobson and Sheffield as well. You've got that link up. Well, Sheffield, Yorkshire and stuff. They've got that link up with Free Sports as well. You know, which Friday night. You know what I mean? You were like, we'll watch out. If I'm in, I'll watch it. You know if I'm in, I'll watch anything. And I used to do it on the old, when Dave Caldwell had his shows on the iPad and the Caldwell boxing app. And I know Steve Wood has them on the VIP boxing website and stuff. And there is a lot of stuff streamed that you probably don't realise. But I guess we've never really had it up here, is what you're referring to. I know we haven't. And I guess that's just hasn't caught on up here yet, you know, and maybe a YouTube channel, us or, you know, someone else can at some point may look into that. I don't know. But if you can afford to do it, then I don't know why you wouldn't, because it's more exposure, isn't it? You know what I mean? I'm sure boxers would like to watch the, you know, fights back. I know they get recorded. There is people there that do record them and stuff, but I don't know how that would work, putting it onto like a full network and, you know, a full actual broadcast. But it's not a bad little link up, the IFL and MTK one. And, you know, you've got the prelims from like 6 with no commentary. Then the main card starts when Barry Jones and Alex Steadman and that kick in, and, you know, John Walling, whoever. And it's very professional, and it is good the way they do it. And, you know, it's obviously, as I say, being available to watch in the US is a pretty big deal as well. So, it's a good model. And for people like us, and I'm sure there's more than just us out there, obviously, that if you're in that house and you want to watch some boxing and you've got a smart TV or a YouTube or an iPad or whatever, then it's there. Do you know what I mean? It's free and it's good, and, you know, I enjoy it.
I'm sure that'll go on the air on the review. It's free and it's good.
It's free, it's good, and I enjoy it. Put that in your posters, and there you go. You can have that one. You can have that one for now, MTK.
Right,
so that was that. That was that done, yeah.
Sounds like you had a good Saturday night.
You know me.
Any plans for this Saturday night coming? Seamlessly moving on again then?
No, I'll be. Sounds like I've got no life, but I haven't. As you say,
I didn't generally know that. I was expecting you to then say you're going to be out. You're not going to be watching on Saturday.
No, I'm out Friday night this week actually. So Saturday I've got no plans. Matchroom get their UK schedule underway this Saturday night. I know they had an outing in the States last week in Miami with Andrade and Tevin Farmer Diaz was on there, and Daniel Roman, Akhmadiliev and all that. But the UK schedule gets underway this week in Sheffield. Not the strongest of cards, I think is fair to say. The long-awaited return of Kell Brook in his 567th tune-up fight on Saturday night in Sheffield. Loves a tune-up, that man. He's had more tune-ups than my car. But, you know,
beautiful,
he's back.
well done.
Thank you. And so
when was his last fight? Putting you on the spot now.
Oh God, didn't he stop someone early? What was the guy's name? Didn't he stop a pudding quite early in Sheffield?
He stopped Sia Rabchanka in March 2018.
That was his last fight?
No, he fought since then.
Who was after that?
He went the distance with Michael Zarafa in...
oh, wow.
Yeah, Michael Zarafa in December 2018. That was the last time Kell Brook was in the ring.
Wow, so here we are, over 12 months later, and he's back. God, me and you could talk Kell Brook for a long time here. I don't know what the plan is. Is he?
This could turn into a special special episode, couldn't it?
Mind the pun, special K episode. Is he like? Is it still after the Khan fight? Is he after? Does he want to be a world champion? Has he got any ambition left? Is he paying the bill? I don't know. Like, what does he want? What does he want? Does he want to be a world champ at 154 or back down to 147 again? Is it just all about getting the Khan fight at some point? Like, I don't get. Like, where's he at? What does he want from this?
You could rewind this to any time in the last couple of years, and it's just been on one big loop, hasn't it? Like, since, and again, I think every time anyone talks about Kell Brook, you go back to the Sean Porter win in the States. He won the welterweight title, world of boxing, seemingly, is his oyster. I remember Khan being in the studio and they're sort of digging him out, saying, well, you've said like he's not got the win. He's now, Brook has that belt. He's got a belt at welterweight, which Khan hasn't done. If there's any point, that was the point to make it, like, there and then. But I think what Khan has been to Brook in that target, that's what Mayweather was to Khan, and both of them have just proved elusive for the other one. They've never really been in that position where the fight's getting made. It's almost sad looking at Brook, because he was genuinely one of my favourite boxers. He was like that.
Yeah,
I remember watching him from prospect, from British title level going up. So he took his time. He was seemingly having tune-up after tune-up, as you've just said there, like sort of always on the cusp. There was the Devon Alexander fights fell through. Then like that journey, the amount of mandatories he seemed to fight, and then got into that position, the eliminators and stuff. He got in a position, obviously won the belt. You think, right, crack on, like you're in the deepest division in the sport. He's already boxed in America on a Showtime card against Porter. You've got like Thurman, Garcia, even like to a lesser extent, you have Vargas. Like Timothy Bradley was around then. The list goes on. Like even in that mix of like Pacquiao Mayweather, like, it wouldn't have been out of the realms of possibility to say Brook in with them at that time. And then
no, absolutely.
For whatever reason, he's obviously stepped in and fought Golovkin, which, from a reputational point of view, there's no sort of risk attached to that. Like if he got stopped off the first punch off Golovkin, no one would have thought any less of him at welterweight. But physically and maybe mentally, that took a lot more out of him than they anticipated, because he then obviously had to get himself back down to welterweight from middleweight, which for a big welterweight who seemingly or reportedly has always had trouble getting down to 147, that seemingly took a lot out of him. The fact that he did that to then box against Errol Spence, probably not the wisest in hindsight now, obviously. And with all that in mind, you think, right, 154, that's going to be your sort of prime weight. Like, you're too big for welterweight, not a natural middleweight. You're there, that should be your weight. And again, it's probably one of the deepest divisions in terms of champions and boxers in and around that championship level. A lot of good fights to be made. And then we're talking of, 3 fights at the weight within 2 years?
And it's a massively exciting division as well. 154 at the minute. You've already had an upset in that division earlier on. This year already. The other week in the States and that. And it's just there's so many. There's a lot of fun fights to be made in that division as well. Like there's some quality operators, but there's no one that massively stands head and shoulders above everyone. So
but I think that's why it makes it more entertaining, because there's not that one champion that everyone's sort of clamouring for and wanting to fight. Like you look at middleweight or even super middleweight, and it's just Canelo. That's all the sort of champions, and anyone on that fringe level in and around the world titles wants that big money fight. Whereas it's super welterweight, junior middleweight, whatever you want to call it, the champions who seemingly beat each other and lost to each other. Like Charlo avenged his loss. Jarrett Hurd lost recently. He was sort of seen as like this invincible force just because of how big and strong he is.
Yeah, then hasn't he just won on points? Didn't he win on points recently as well? I don't know.
Yeah, so again, like they're coming back, but it just seems like everyone's sort of beating everyone. So if you fancy yourself and you're at that weight, you must be looking, thinking, well, there's nothing to fear in a sense. There's all these guys, they are beatable. But
I guess
Brook just doesn't seem to be in that mix at all, or like willing to be in the mix.
I guess we won't know until after Saturday night. Like, does he win? Does he win well? Does he look old? Does he not? Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of questions now about Brook. It's been that
He
long,
looked
like you
awful
say.
against the Rafa, didn't he? That was one he was
Uh,
expected to sort of blast him out, and because he
and then,
didn't, obviously now he's back with Ingle, so it's like, well, we'll see
yeah,
what sort of difference that makes. It seemed bizarre that he wasn't, like, having been with them for so long, and I don't know what went on there. But I
I
think
don't know what.
he's almost in a lose-lose situation here, because if he goes in and does a job on DeLuca, everyone says, well, like, you know, it was Mark DeLuca, like, no one's really that
Yeah,
confident in him, no one's that high on him at the moment, unless I might be wrong there might be some people backing him, but I haven't seen much of that in, like, on social media, in the bits and pieces I've read. But if he then struggles again and doesn't look himself, looks lackluster, there's still going to be those question marks and those criticisms flying at him. So I don't know what we can really gauge from this. It's like, however he does it, if he wins, we're in that position which we eternally seem to be in with Cal Brook. He needs that big fight. He needs a signature win on his record.
you would hope that there is a plan there. And I know Eddie Hearn does like to sit down with fighters and, you know, look at the year as a whole and stuff. But you just don't know now with Brook. Like, has there been a plan over the last? Like you mentioned the Golovkin fight before. Where, in hindsight, where the hell did that come from? Like, who wanted that fight and why was it made? And why did he jump up to middleweight? And why did he fight Golovkin? Like, what was all that about? You
This
know
is
what I
the
mean?
thing, and you can put
It's
a lot of that
bizarre
down to
looking back on it.
hindsight with how it's all turned out and spiraled since. But a lot of people were questioning that decision at the time, because it was
Yeah.
Eubank originally was meant to be the opponent, wasn't he? And then obviously that fell through. That was pulled off, and it was like, well, actually, it was almost like you can imagine him going through his little Rolodex, thinking, right, well, who have I got that can possibly step in and face Golovkin and keep sort of Golovkin attraction in the UK?
Yeah, that's it. And you could argue he's never been the same since that. Do you know what I mean? He did take a bit of a beating that night, and like, you know, and he's been through a lot. And the Spence fight didn't really go his way. Then he obviously got stabbed, and you know, he's been talking this week about his mental health battles and stuff, and leaving Ingle. And you do wonder at this point what he's got left. And to be honest, I don't even know if that'll be answered on Saturday, because, as you said, if he brushes past DeLuca in 2, 3, 4 rounds, oh, well, who the hell's DeLuca? Do you know what I mean? The only way that'll be answered is if he labours again, like he did against Zarafa. Then I think, you know, if he labours to another points win or struggles or gets beat or whatever, then I guess that's the
Yeah,
end. But
I think
at this
from
point,
a mental point
it's
of view,
not.
from Brook's point of view, if he does do a job on him, that might give him the belief and the confidence again that he does have it, and he might think, right,
Yeah.
now I'm ready to fight one of the champions.
It'd be interesting to see how much that sells in Sheffield, because I know he's from Sheffield, but he's never been the biggest of ticket sellers, Kell Brook, and I'm not really expecting to sell out there Saturday night. The you know, I know you've got a few local lads and local fighters on the card as well, like from that Yorkshire region. You've got Galahad, you've got Dave Allen, you've got Terry Harper going for a world title, but I can't imagine it's going to do huge numbers because, as I said, it's a pretty low key start of the year for Matchroom. It's not one of them cards. Say you look at Quid Cowell and you think, bloody hell, that's a good head, that's a decent fight. Do you know what I mean? You don't really look at that bill this time and think, oh, you know.
Yeah, it's almost that
Dave
sort of
Allen's
mishmash of names, and
yeah,
again, not
people
like
who
the
need
massive star power
yeah,
names, but I think good
people
enough to
who
catch a bit of attention. But as you say,
yeah.
when you sort of look through it, it's like, again, there's a few fights on there that could turn out to be entertaining, but it's
Well, that's
hard.
it. And
Apart from being sort of a Brook fan and wanting him to do well, there's not a lot on there that I'm picking out thinking, oh yeah, I definitely want to watch that.
no, that's it. I know
I
Kid
still will.
Galahad's on.
Don't get me wrong. I'll still sit and watch it.
No, same. And I know Kid Galahad's on there trying to bounce back from the Josh Wharton defeat. Depending on who you speak to, some people say he won that fight, others didn't. But I think we can all agree it wasn't a classic by any means. He's fighting Claudio Moreira, I believe. A bit of a game opponent. The lad can fight. Gives it his all. Got some decent wins on the record. Lost a few, but, you know,
Yeah,
getting on.
see, that's an interesting one for me, because it's,
It
like you
is.
said there, Galahad's got this reputation of not being particularly entertaining, but he's an incredibly skillful boxer. He's very, very clever with the way he moves around the ring and the way he sort of manages his energy. He's not wasteful with punches. He's quite accurate. But this Moreiro's, again, he's one that I have seen a few people tipping and thinking, oh, he could cause the upset. So
I think that's
from an entertainment, all-out warfare point of view, it's probably not going to capture the imagination. But on paper, that is a very good European, at least sort of fringe world level contest. So like from a matchmaking point of view, that is it's a good one to make. And is it some sort of eliminator for a title again? So getting him back in that mix, is it the IBF again?
Yeah, I think getting him back in that mix, like you say, and I think that is a decent fight. And I think if you are looking for a bit of value with the bookies, then you could give it a shot on Moreira. But as you say, he's a skillful operator. Galahad, that's one thing. You know, it's not, as you said, the most eye-catching of styles, and like I touched on with the Warrington fight, wasn't great, but he's a good boxer. You know, so it'd be worth keeping an eye on that one. Dave Allen's back on there for the first time since fighting David Price. I know he was meant to fight on the Newcastle show last year, and he's obviously had a few things going on, but he's back. He's fighting Dorian Darch. Again, just, you know, looking to get the win and put himself back into that British title mix. I know he's been doing a bit of coaching. Coach Allen at the minute, he's got a few lads under his wing. Jay from Scotland. Jay McFarlane.
Yeah,
that's the one. That's a fella. So he's helping him out and stuff, and he seems to be enjoying his life again, springing the steps. So you think he'll get the win Saturday for his sake, and can finally push onto that British title.
It's almost the opposite of what I was saying with the Galahad there. It's obviously like a lower level of boxing, but it'll probably be quite an entertaining fight for as long as it lasts. Again, there's a reason Dave Allen, obviously, yes, his social media presence and stuff gets him a lot of fans and a lot of like well wishing. But again, he's capable. He's a heavyweight. He's capable of pulling out the sensation stoppage, as he not maybe done as often, but obviously the Lucas Brown fight, the Nick Webb fight. That's the sort of thing that sticks in the fans' mind and makes you want to come back and tune in for someone, I suppose.
Well, that's it. So he's back, and then you've got Terry Harper versus Eva Wallstone for a world title fight, females as well. Who I think she'd been in with Katie Taylor, experienced.
Terry Dooley been pulled from that one, has he?
Yes. Hey, me Twitter was tagging everyone wrong the other day. It was bizarre that. He couldn't make weight, so he's being pulled. Local girl going for the world title, and obviously wish her all the best as well. But it's Saturday night. It's, as I said, it's not the most high profile of cards, but Matchroom are back this Saturday, and then I think
just before we go on, I think one to mention is John Doherty on their card. Just talking about fighters that we sort of track and keep an eye on. If anyone isn't familiar with them, and I think most of the people who sort of follow us will be, but there might be a few tuning in aren't really familiar with some of the lesser known boxers. He's a Scottish prospect, big lad as well. I think super middle, sort of light heavy in and around that. And we've seen him a couple of times actually. He's fought in the Newcastle cards in Matchroom, and I think this will be his 8th fight or 6th or 8th, 7th or 8th fight. Most of those coming via stoppage. I think he's gone since a couple of times, but very skillful, good amateur record, good power as well. Like big strong lad, and I think he's definitely one who will be sort of in with a chance of progressing to a really high level. Sort of obviously it's very early to say. He's only early 20s, but he could be knocking on the door of British level sooner rather than later. I think if he continues the way he started anyway.
No, I do, and like you say, there's always that new generation of prospects going through that are signed to Matchroom, and you've got him, you've got people like Charles Frankham, Hopey Price, who's had to pull off the show this Saturday due to injury, and there is these new names that keep getting refreshed and recycled, and the new cycle of prospects always starts. There's always new people to look out for, and as you say, John Doherty's definitely one of them. Like, he can punch, he can bang. Enjoyed watching him in Newcastle in the past, so yeah, hopefully he'll get on the live broadcast or the Facebook stream or something on Saturday, and keep an eye on him for sure.
And crack on with whatever it was you were going to talk about before I interrupted you.
I can't remember now. No, I was just saying that it's just about the low key start really. But then going into March, I guess they've got Craig Cowell, which we'll touch on that close at the time, but I think that's probably a bit more like it for
fantastic fight that, by the way.
Yeah, great fight.
I've seen a few criticise that, but I don't see anything wrong with that being a headline after a Saturday Sky show, like a Saturday night non-pay-per-view show.
No, neither do I. Absolutely.
Ideally, I'd like obviously the undercard packed with it, as we say, a couple of competitive fights, even like area title, English title, whatever. But
Yeah.
it's
No, that's
again in terms of styles, both of them like to come forward, both of them like to throw. I think, yeah, like I'm more than happy to have. Can't wait for that one.
no same. And February is picking up. You've got like without I often do this, go off on a tangent where I should really just keep it about this week. But just looking forward quickly, you've got the MTK Golden Contract semis. Not the light heavy ones, the other ones, the 140 semis and the
Super lightweight,
yeah, the other ones. And you've got you just under 3 weeks away from Fury Wilder 2, which I guess we'll touch upon that close at the time. But I'm really starting to look forward to that one now. To have such a big fight, it could be the fight of the year already in 22nd of February. There might not be a bigger one made this year. You just don't know the way boxing works. But Fury Wilder 2 is just so intriguing and so like that first fight, man. It was, it's ridiculous. And Wilder was seconds away from winning it. Fury was seconds away. It was just so close, and it's an absolute knife edge again. And total 50-50 fight. And the closer that gets, the more excited I'm getting for that. Then, because it just makes you forget about all the shit that goes on with boxing sometimes, and you think, you know what, it's two bloody good heavyweights going at it and I'm
yeah.
really
I think a lot of people, and I include myself in this, you get very like guilty of being very cynical with boxing, and boxing doesn't help itself at times. But
no.
I think, yeah, when something like that does come along, you've just got to sort of sit back, enjoy it, ignore all, as you say, all the bullshit that's floating around it. Try and put all the fights that aren't getting made, all the issues with it. You just think, right, this is why I watch boxing, for this sort of fight. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to enjoy it.
No, you're totally right. Exactly what it is. You nail on the head there. That's it. And you just enjoy the spectacle, enjoy for what it is, and that it has been made. And sometimes boxing burns a lot of energy talking about fights that haven't been made and won't be made. And do you know what I mean? And but this one has, and this one's happening, and let's enjoy that. We'll look at it close at the time though. But as I say, just that buzz, like no other sport, I guess, when something big is on the horizon, and it just starts to sort of whet the appetite, and get your juices flowing and get you a bit excited. And I'm really, as I say, I'm looking forward to that for sure. There's not many fights that get me up at 3-4 in the morning these days, if I'm totally honest with you. But that one I will be for sure.
No, I'm exactly the same, and it's hard because there are some good fights that I think, well, I'd quite like to watch that, but then like, it's almost like you sort of pick and choose, and you're like, right, well, it has to be something to get me up. I'll not record this one. I'll get up and watch it live, and as you say, soak it all in, enjoy it. And it can be hard watching it on the Sunday after when you're maybe not as interested in it. You're sort of almost like a chore. You've got to force yourself to watch a fight. But every so often one comes along, and you're like, yeah, definitely, this is the one.
The week after that, obviously the 29th, you've got the little fellas. You've got Calify, Chocolatito, and a few other cracking fights on that bill. I think Joseph, I'm saying little fellas, Joseph Parker's just been added it today, but Jay Harris.
He's little for a heavyweight.
Jay Harris is on there as well, a massive step up for him. Class. That's a really decent bill that on February 29th. But again, if we try and keep these weekly, we'll touch about it close at the time. But for this week, I think that was the main things, was to do the MTK show and to look ahead to this Saturday. Anything else you want to touch upon? Anything else caught your eye in the boxing world? Any miscellaneous stuff?
I was going to say, I think in terms of actual boxing, that's probably it. If we're trying to keep it current, if we delve into the is it a minefield? I don't know, the hellhole sometimes it is boxing Twitter. I think it would be almost naive not to mention something going on this week. Little, I don't know, a shout out's the right word, reference to Umar from IFL.
Umar.
Exactly right. I've thought about this because.
Well, I'll just explain for those that don't know. There might be some people thinking, what the hell he's talking about. Umar is a young man that works for IFL TV, obviously the UK and Europe's whatever premier boxing interview channel on YouTube. And for whatever, I'm not sure how they started, but on Sunday afternoon, basically the shit hit the fan, in that people had dug back through his Twitter to say 2015, when I'm around that area anyway, where I'm guessing he was sort of 16, 17-year-old. That's what's being reported. and they were digging up old tweets and tweets where he'd sort of had a go at Liverpool Football Club, Liverpool fans. He'd referenced Hillsborough. He'd had a few digs. This is all before he worked for IFL, may I add. He'd had a few digs at Tyson Fury, Eddie Hearn and stuff, but I think it was the Liverpool tweets about Hillsborough that really sort of made this spiral. And then, by Sunday evening, this was just going mental on Twitter. Retweets. He then deleted his account. Kugan Cassius issued a statement saying he was looking into it and all this. Fast forward a few days, Umar's now released an apology video today, which I haven't watched yet, but I have seen.
I have.
Yeah, you've watched it. And just before we get into it, I remember saying this last year on our Twitter, and a few people, maybe even you, shot us down because it was when Umar was having that argument or that debate with Tundi Ajayi, Anthony Yard's manager, and I remember tweeting something along the lines of like, "Don't get me wrong." Along these lines of, "Don't get me wrong. If I could take British Boxing Blog full time and get the level of access and press passes and foreign trips and take around the world and whatever, then I would do it. But there is a part of you that sits here with your 9,000 followers in your northeast, shows and whatever. You're thinking, God, they got a lot of scrutiny, these guys, and they're almost minor sort of celebrities, Kugan Cassius especially, and now obviously Umar and that. I guess Andy's a bit more understated, but Andy McCart. But I don't know. It's a mental level of like scrutiny and sort of interest in you just for being a boxing interviewer and stuff, and and I just again that sort of reared its head this week where it's just absolutely went mental. Like you're talking like trending on Twitter levels and stuff for a young British boxing interviewer. It was
reported in the Daily Mail online.
Absolutely mental, and like I remember mentioning that last year and getting people going, "Oh, fuck off, man! You'd love to be like IFL. You'd love to have access." And I guess that wasn't what I was saying. Like,
No, I agree, and I'm sure I've said something similar as well, and had the same sort of debate you did, because yes, like I'll happily admit I don't want this to come across like a bitter, jealous rant because I'm not bitter, but I will admit that doing what we do, I'm jealous of the the level that IFL's at, the success. Don't begrudge them at all, by the way.
Nah, because they've grafted for it.
They graft that they've earned it, but as you say, it does sort of shine a different light, and not a particularly good one, on some of the stuff that they have to put up with. Like, you imagine like the video interviews we do, and we get good feedback, we get nice feedback, and I think it's partially is genuine, but it's partially people trying to sort of push us and big us up and encourage us and things. But then imagine that was split 50-50, people congratulating you, praising what you're doing, and then people hammering you for the sake of it because you're up there. And it comes back to, like I've said about Matchroom before, like because they are the most successful, and Eddie Hearn puts himself out there with these interviews, he makes himself that target. And I'm not saying it's any of the abuse is justified, because it's not, but the criticism can be. But imagine just someone like critiquing you. Oh, why didn't you ask this? Oh, you didn't ask this question. And
that was
digging up your tweets from like 4 or 5 years ago. I think someone put on one of the comments saying like, I'm so glad that like social media wasn't around when we were 15, 16. Some of the things you say, and I'm not excusing it because I read them, and I think you messaged me, we were talking about it, and you said like, even at the age of 16, 17 for us, you knew like Hillsborough, the Liverpool fans, all that sort of thing was off limits. It's a very, very sensitive subject. And I think, again, not in a defense of Umar, he doesn't need me defending him, but I think there was almost an ignorance there, which isn't an excuse. But he's almost thinking like he's heard that this, like people say this sort of thing, and he's trying to wind up fans or whatever. And it wasn't even like, because how many people on Twitter would be the same? The tweets weren't even targeted at anyone. It was just putting it out there, and it was abusive, and it wasn't particularly nice to read. And I'm sure when he's looked at them and they've been brought to his attention, that yes, he will regret that they've been found and been put in the public eye. But even if he's read if he read those back privately, I'd like to think that he's thinking like, what was I thinking there? What was I doing?
We've like you say, we're all football fans. We've all been football fans, and I guess like 16, 17 hours probably just starting to follow Newcastle away. Do you know what I mean? Those years, and you know, we've all been there. We all sang songs and stuff, but there is things that even I think at that age I was sort of pretty well versed with Hillsborough, and you know that. And I guess he must have been watching Chelsea play Liverpool, and it's like, oh, you've been to us, and you know, a bit of the other stuff about Hillsborough and that, which you know, and there is things that are pretty sort of you don't want to cross that line in this country, and I think Hillsborough is definitely one of them as football fans, and you know, even at 17, I would think I would probably know better to put a sort of
But then
Hillsborough
you've got to
related,
think we've
you know,
got 10 years on him. Like,
I know.
it's even more removed. I'm not saying that he
I
didn't know
agree.
anything about it. He's obviously known enough about
Yeah,
it to know that it would cause some offence
yeah.
to rival fans.
He might not even have been alive when Hillsborough happened. We grew up in that era automatically after it, immediately after it. You know, like, you know, when Hillsborough, what was it, 89 or something?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. So that was like we started following Newcastle like the early 90s, like
early 90s,
93.
Yeah.
So we were in that immediate aftermath of it, definitely. But I think moving away from that side of it, what also made it potentially an awkward situation for him personally is he's essentially been a little bit of a Twitter troll back in the day. Like before he's got in with the boxers, and there was one that it did make me laugh a little bit, I'll be honest. Like it was it was a tweet with the pictures of him next to Fury, sort of praising him, the Gypsy King, brilliant honour to be spending time with him, blah blah blah. And then it was like a tweet calling him a crackhead in the next breath. Like obviously not the next breath, it was years ago, but it just sort of shows like he's been a boxing fan, he's been frustrated, and he's vented and he's abused those within boxing. And now he's, again, you can say he's changed, he's matured, he's grown up, but he's almost gone 180. I saw referenced like that he's now fully trying to get in and be pally with them. And I must admit, like, hand on heart, I don't tend to watch a lot of the IFL videos.
No, same.
Again,
I used to.
Fair play to them, like the content they produce and you know the odds they put in. It's admirable, and like we're aspiring to that in a way. But it's only when there's something come out, like I watched the Eddie Hearn one with Andy McCart after the Gillian White thing to see that, like, you know, if there's something going on that I'm particularly interested in, I'll watch. So I can't honestly say like whether I think he's a good interviewer or not or what have you, but it'll make it a little bit interesting to see what his sort of line of inquiry will be. How hard will he push them? Will they give him anything back? Like, again, you know, we could be talking in a few months' time. It's just sort of water under the bridge, and they're all getting on again. But
well, that's it. But
already been a bit of a, I don't know what, I've lost the word now. A bit of a comeback, I suppose, with Anthony Fowler and Robbie Davis Jr., both obviously Liverpool lads, saying that, you know, they're not essentially going to be interviewed by him. I think Fowler said IFL as a whole. A bit of a backlash. That's the word I was looking for.
And you can't blame them for that, because they're Liverpool lads, Liverpool fans, and they are going to be sensitive towards Hillsborough comments because they grew up with that to their families, and people are going, oh, look at Fowler jumping on there, and it's just like, you have to let people react to how they want it about Hillsborough. Nobody can tell you how to feel about that if you're from there.
It's almost like, and this is going to sound bizarre, but it's almost like if you've never been subject to racism, you're not really going to understand how that feels. And then if you're not from Liverpool and you're not familiar with all of that, and it's not like members of your family and friends and previous generations being affected, then
how it's affected the city, the people.
Yeah, like who are you to respond to that and to say this is how they should be reacting? It's a very personal thing.
But then that's it, and obviously at the same time, you don't want to see a young lad lose his job, which I don't think he will personally. I think they'll just let it calm down for a bit. But I guess, as you say, they may have to be careful where they place him and what shows they put him to. Do you know what I mean? I think the next show in Liverpool probably isn't the best place for him to be. But, and he's a young lad. And again, I've seen people on Twitter use it to sort of personally attack him. Like, oh, I used to message Umar before he became Umar IFL and he was dead sound.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of hinting at before. I think
now he's a knob, and now he's arrogant.
Personally.
Yeah, now he's a knob, now he's arrogant, and he doesn't talk to us anymore. It's like, well, you know, if I was 22 and I'm being fly to Vegas to go and see Wilder Fury and, you know, like whatever, and work that and travel the world at that age, then I think I'd have a bit of a chip on my shoulder, to be honest. I don't know Umar. I've seen him at press conferences. I've never spoken to him. I don't know him. Like, I've had Twitter exchanges with him, but I don't know him to say hello to. So I kind of judge his character, and we can just judge from what we've seen on Twitter and stuff. And
to be fair, like, I've met him a couple of times, and just like again, very briefly, just to say hello and sort of being part of conversation with him and like a couple of other lads ringside and stuff. And he's always seemed all right and like fairly approachable and stuff. But again, that's not somebody on Twitter who's, I don't know what they expect. Do they expect him to still sit there slagging off the promoters and the boxers? Like,
no, that's it.
Like giving them abuse. I don't know. It's an interesting one. Like it
is, and it's really an interesting one to look from the outside. You know what I mean? Like we've kept our counsel on Twitter, and obviously we're addressing it now. But I just mean, like, it's not for us to stir the pot. We're just simply, we're talking.
No, that's it. It's obviously boxing news, isn't it? It's gone on. It's people are aware of it, and just sort of giving our thoughts and opinions. And I think it comes back to, I think we've spoken about boxers being trolled and the sort of limits that there are, because we, in our position, and this is when I was desperately looking through my previous tweets to see if there was anything incriminating there. Like, I've interacted with boxers before BBB, and there's ones I've praised, ones I've criticised, and like you said, it's like BBB before it happened. Like if I'm watching a fight or whatever, I'll give my honest opinion, and I'll try to be respectful with that. Like, you know what I mean? If someone hasn't performed well, or like we've just talked about different cards there, we're saying this Sheffield card isn't the sort of greatest in terms of quality, but then there's a Matchroom America one towards the end of the month. You're saying there, like, yeah, you're fighting Chocolatito and stuff, like that's a much better card. Like, it's an honest opinion. It's not that we expect boxers or promoters or anyone in the business to give us the time of day in terms of, oh, what are BBB lads saying, what they're saying about the shows and stuff. Like, honestly, they're probably not going to care. Like, why would they? But as fans, I think everyone is entitled to their opinion. It's just how you voice that. Like, there's a difference between criticism and the abuse that a lot of them get.
No, that's it. And I don't think we don't openly abuse. Do you know what I mean? We can give criticism, like we've just said that. For example, the Matchroom card's not the best this weekend. Do you know what I mean? But that's so be it. Like, but but there is a way to do it, and I guess like you have to be respectful and stuff. And he was a young lad, and he's made a mistake, and he'll have consequences. He's having them now. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously being told to stay away for a bit. His dream job. He probably had trips coming up, trips booked. Like, February's a busy month, and that I'm sure he'd be up sitting in the house gutted, and it may affect him for a long, long time with his work because of the Liverpool connotations, like we said. But he's going to have to live with that, and But as on the other foot, on the other shoe, on the other foot, then he was young, and he wasn't 13, 14 young. He was a young, sort of late teenager, I guess, and
young man,
young man. Maybe he should have known better about the Hillsborough comments, but at the same time, then he was young, and he can still be educated. He can still learn about it, and I'm sure.
I think it does. It does highlight the potential pitfalls of social media as well. Like, you see lots of examples where someone's saying something and people are trying to find their employers and like actively seeking them out and quoting them and stuff and including them in tweets and Facebook posts and things, because like your digital footprint doesn't go away. Like, you can delete the tweets and stuff, but you don't know who's got screenshots, who's seen them, who's aware of it. And like, part of my job, we have training on it, basically. Yeah. Like, where we are representing our employer, and I guarantee that if I'd put something out like that and it'd come to light with my employers, I'd be in serious trouble as well. It's not like
I've seen Danny Flexen tweeting.
From that legal standpoint, it's not an excuse that you were young or it was years ago. Like, I've seen examples, and we've been made aware of what's expected and what's acceptable.
I've seen Danny Flexen tweeting about that. I think it might have been to Tom Maltby, and he was like, Danny Flexen was like, so if you tweeted something like rude or something like offensive, you get sacked. And the other kid, I think it was Tom, was like, yes, absolutely, I would get sacked, because like, I work for a company who's got a social media and ethics code and all this. Like,
yeah, exactly the same.
It's like, maybe I don't know what planet I don't know why I didn't think he would, but anyway, so that's that.
I think it depends on the profession. All, I guess. It depends on obviously the job and the industry and the company and stuff. But like you were saying, as a public figure, which is essentially what they are, it reflects on that company, doesn't it? And obviously we've seen like O'Hara Davis is the comparison. He's been like, he was sort of dismissed, separated, parted ways, whatever, with Matchroom because of a similar topic, shall we say, and different sort of behaviours and stuff. But it shows that like it's not as like you're not invincible on what you put on social media. And
no, you're not. No. And I'm sure he's learnt his lesson. And but just going forward, you imagine the comments on the first video he does back, and people will be, this could rumble on, and it's just.
This is it. This is like again.
But then you have to look at the mental health of the young lad. Like he's just young. He's 22, and he's suddenly overnight, really, or in the middle of a Sunday afternoon, found himself at the centre of a bloody boxing Twitter shitstorm, and he made the papers, like you said. And it's like, so on the same time, you don't want things to come down too harsh on him, because I guess everyone should have a chance to make up for the mistakes and stuff. But as you say, the Hillsborough comments are particularly sort of sensitive, and I guess you have to expect there to be consequences from that as well.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think the best thing he can do is, like, obviously he's come out, he's apologised, and face it. If he wants to continue, he's going to have to face the music at some point. And
yeah,
I think, well, yeah, from our point of view, all the best. Let him face it, crack on. I think
but if they do want to hire the Hampton Deck of North East Boxing, then we're negotiable. Like,
I'm definitely cutting that out.
Put it off of my way, I'll go full time. No, I'm not joking. You can cut that out. No, good, fair play.
To the nearest 10, though, right?
What?
Rounded to the nearest 10. How many tweets do you think Andy McCart's just deleted in the last couple of days?
Oh, quite a few. I think there'll be a few people going back to 2015, 16 and beyond. Luckily, I sort of deleted my Stephen Lowe Twitter. Well, I've just told everyone my name there, but I deleted my Twitter pretty early on British Boxing Blog, just solely because I wasn't on it. Like, British Boxing Blog was taking up all my time, so that's probably why I started tweeting NUFC madness from there. But still,
like, again, it's interesting. Like, not solely with boxing, is it? It's like when we started, we were sort of fairly anonymous, and like, there wasn't any reason for that initially. It was just like, right, we're going to use this as a sort of channel, a vehicle for like our hobby essentially. And then as it's gone on, we've sort of tried to become a bit more personable with it. And like, as I say, mine's still there, but to be honest, I rarely tweet from mine. Like, it's only occasionally I sort of go through spurts and put little bits on. But like, my employer asked me to put it onto protected, like a private thing.
Yeah.
So they'd actively gone and searched for me on social media and found my Twitter and told me, oh, it's public. Like, as part of our conduct, you need to have it as the tweets protected.
Well, that's it. And like we say, just to sum that up, I'm sure he will learn his lesson, and probably has done already. And hopefully he can come back from it. But I guess it might not be easy in Liverpool. But who knows? Let's just see how it goes. But I guess it's a lesson for everyone, just to, I guess, really sort of be careful of what you're putting on social media, and just try and maybe have a bit of respect, because you never know who's reading and who's watching and what have you. So, that's it.
Right, nice little internet safety message to end on.
Just be careful, yeah, 2 hours time I'll be going, oh, Steve Bruce, what a wanker. But that's it.
You can look out for that. Pick BBB up and any abusive tweets that you find going out.
But even that, even people get annoyed when we tweet about Newcastle. Like, come on, lads, keep it a box. Yeah, you do as well. But we'll learn. But no, it's been good. Hopefully we'll got a few guests lined up in the next few weeks as well. I know a few people are interested in speaking to us this Sunday. I'll tell you about that when we come off. But so hopefully, I've
not just like leaving the listeners hanging, but leaving me hanging as well.
No, you know about it, man. I told you about it last night. But
all right.
Hopefully, we still always working to get people on, and I was been pretty buzzing with the reception to the Lewis Ritson one and the Sonny Edwards one. Like, that's pretty decent guests for us, and obviously the one you did in Stockton with Ellis Corey and Joe Mafosa and Imran and Pete. Like, we enjoyed it with the guests, and let's try and keep that going, but also a bit of me and you just talking rubbish as well. So if everyone's enjoyed it and want to leave us a review, like I said earlier, or subscribe or follow, whatever, then we appreciate it. Thank you.